And let's go ahead and welcome you to today's webinar on advancing your career with AWS training and certification. I'm going to hand things over to our featured presenter today. He is technical trainer of New Horizons, Nebraska, Mr. Sean Bolin. Sean, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening to all of you, wherever you happen to be at. It is still morning for me. I'm coming to you out of cloudy Omaha, Nebraska today, which is where I'm based out of, where I live. Thanks for joining us. Going to take some time today to talk about cloud computing in general, AWS specifically, and how you can become involved in this. If you're not already involved, some options you have, ways you can take advantage of this huge set of technology that we see taking over the world that we call cloud computing. Want to draw attention, you do see my email address there on the slide if you want to jot that down. It'll also be on the last slide we put up here. There may be some questions that you have that may be a little bit too technical that we don't get to, things like that. If you want to reach out to me directly, post-webinar, things like that, I certainly welcome that from each of you. So just a little bit about me. As Kelly mentioned, I am with New Horizons out of Omaha, Nebraska. I've been doing technical training for longer than I care to admit to. Makes me sound old. Celebrating my 20th year as a Microsoft certified trainer. I've been with New Horizons a little bit over 11 years now. I'm basically a systems guy, I guess is the best way you could describe me. I work with any of the systems related technologies. Another way of saying I'm not a programmer. Windows Server, Windows Client, all the virtualization platforms. I teach a lot of VMware technology. And of course, over the last several years, as this phenomenon we call cloud computing has been taking over, I've been doing lots of cloud computing. I do work with several different major vendors as far as cloud computing goes, teach lots of AWS classes, which is what we're going to talk about today. But I do also work with Microsoft Azure. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, so familiar with that as well. What I'd like to visit with you about today is, again, cloud computing in general, AWS specifically, and then try to give you some practical ideas, practical steps where you can go and what you can do. Certainly, cloud computing is all over the news. We see the commercials, we see the news stories, things like that. But as an IT person, or maybe you're not an IT person yet, but you want to become one, sometimes that, gee, how do I get started? How do I get going with this is an important piece of information. We want to try to cover that for you, and then, of course, answer any questions that you may have. So, got a few slides here talking about cloud computing in general. And you probably have to live under a relatively large rock to not have heard about cloud computing. And again, maybe it's just the television commercials we see, from companies like Microsoft and stuff like that, or maybe your company is starting to flirt with cloud computing, and you're hearing, things talked about. Hear about, hey, we're using AWS, or we're using Microsoft's Office 365, or Azure, or Google Cloud, or some of these other products out there, and you're like, what the heck is this all about? When we look at the IT industry, and if you stay in this industry long enough, you're going to see these waves of technology come about. And this thing we call cloud computing, which has been around 10 years, maybe a little bit more in one way, shape, or form, is probably the most significant advancement technology change since we went through a virtualization wave before that, when we started virtualizing all of our servers. And I just pulled some statistics here from a couple of different surveys to toss out there. The Right Scale 2018 State of the Cloud report is what I'm quoting from here. 96% of the respondents, that's a pretty big survey, are already using cloud technologies. Now, some are using private, some using public, and we'll talk about what that is in just a second. But that's an incredibly astounding statistic that 96% of the companies polled are doing some kind of cloud computing. That tells you this isn't just a fad. This isn't something that 12 months from now we're going to look back and go, oh yeah, remember that? We don't do that anymore. No, this is here to stay. When we take a look at not only companies utilizing cloud computing and jumping in, they're jumping in really, really, really big ways. The statistics you see here are trying to quantify the level of investment that companies are putting into cloud computing. Because it's one thing to say, Yeah, we use cloud computing. We have a test account set up on AWS and we built a couple test servers. Well, you're not really using cloud computing, you're playing with cloud computing. But when we start to take a look at companies large and small and look at, okay, year over year, how much more in terms of resources are you committing to this thing we call cloud computing? These are just some incredibly big growth rates out there that companies are spending on this. Again, this is not a fad. You don't jump on board, you're going to get left behind. The other thing that's significant about these statistics is sometimes we think about technologies like cloud computing as, oh, that's just for the big companies. That's for the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 100 companies out there. And nothing could be farther from the truth. Some of the biggest benefits of cloud computing can be realized by the smallest companies, companies that don't necessarily have the resources to invest in a traditional physical infrastructure, all the servers, all the networking, things like that, but yet they have the same business needs as larger companies. Well, as we'll see with cloud computing, we can go to a company like AWS and with no upfront cost, and literally just a couple of minutes, I can start creating and spinning up virtual machines and databases and networks and websites and things like that incredibly quickly, incredibly easily, and again, no upfront cost. Things that we just can't do when we're looking at a capital expenditure of going out and spending money on servers. This is changing the ball game there. And then, of course, the title of this webinar is essentially, how can this benefit you? I want to get on the bandwagon too. I'm an IT person. How can I get involved, et cetera? And so I don't know anyone in this industry, maybe there's a couple people out there who are purely altruistic. We all do expect a paycheck at the end of the week, end of the month. I know I do. I love my job, but I don't do it for free. So when we take a look at the job roles that are out there for people in cloud computing, and we take a look at some of the salary data, and of course you got to take this all with a grain of salt out there. These are significant jobs. Okay, these are median numbers that you are seeing here. Okay, and again, about 2,800 respondents in this particular survey out there. I don't know about you, but these numbers are nothing to scoff at. Okay, certainly you're not going to start your career as a cloud person at a senior architect level. Okay, but this is a technology set, and these are opportunities that, in my opinion, we're just seeing the first part of. Okay, so again, cloud computing's here. We got to do it. So let's talk about AWS here for a couple of minutes. Amazon Web Services. We can't speak in acronym all the time. AWS, and with no disrespect to any other cloud vendor out there, but AWS is the 800-pound gorilla of cloud computing. They were essentially there practically before anyone else. And by any measure that you put out there, and we can see statistics from lots of different companies and surveys and things like that, AWS ranks as the number one in almost every field, from revenue to feature sets to number of customers and things like that. And when we look at the things that we can do, and more on that in just a moment, but then you take a look here, in 2006, okay, that's not that long ago, okay? Barely over 10 years ago, we started to trickle out these things we call cloud computing out there. Now, AWS, since they were one of the first to market, they're one of the largest. They obviously have some competitive advantages out there. One of the big selling points, and I alluded to this a moment ago with cloud computing, if you look at that second bullet point, to replace upfront capital infrastructure expenses with low variable costs to scale with your business. In other words, a pay-as-you-go model. I don't know any business owners or business managers that if you went to them and say, hey, you know that $5 million capital expenditure you did last year for your big IT project or whatever, what if you could have taken that and instead of done a capital expenditure, do an operational expenditure? And instead of laying out $5 million up front, maybe that's going to get amortized out. Oh, maybe it's $100,000 a month in operational expenses. Business owners, business managers do backflips when we tell them things like that, okay? Because nobody likes those big upfront capital costs. Okay? And cloud computing gives us that opportunity to go from CapEx to OpEx, and that's a huge, huge, huge deal. The other things that we start to get, and again, AWS is one of the leaders here. when we need to grow, when we need to change directions, when I need to, at a very simple level, go from having 2 web servers hosting my content to 10 web servers hosting my content. When we look at cloud computing, we look at the way AWS does that. Okay, we're talking about, in some cases, a couple clicks of a mouse to do that, to go from 2 web servers to 10 web servers hosting my content. And that's just a complete and total game changer. Again, I've been in this industry long enough to have lived through we need to spec out our servers, we need to go to the vendors, we need to get the quotes, we need to order the servers, we need to wait, servers arrive, we assemble the servers, we rack the servers, we configure the server. We're talking weeks and months in that old school physical deployment type model. Now I can simply go in, create an auto scaling group in AWS, and when my demand goes up, hey, wow, magically more web servers popped up out there. When my demand goes down, we can take those web servers away, and I don't have to pay for them when I am not utilizing them. Again, from weeks and months deployment time to minutes deployment time. Now, I mentioned that AWS is the largest cloud provider out there. I have a few statistics on that coming up. When we talk about cloud computing, we have this kind of visualization, this nebulous, hey, stuff exists out there somewhere in the ether. Well, Amazon has built physical data centers, and they have built physical data centers all over the world, okay? Practically every continent. I don't think they have a physical presence in Antarctica yet, but hey, maybe someday, who knows? So they have a physical presence all over the place, meaning that if I'm a North American customer, and I use Amazon Web Services, when I go to deploy my resources in AWS, if I have some kind of business or regulatory reason where my data, my applications, my customer information cannot leave the physical continental United States, that's my choice. I have complete and total control over my information, my data, my applications that I deploy in AWS. If I want all of those running in the Amazon data center that is in Virginia, I can put them in Virginia. If I want to put them in the Ohio data center, the Northern California, the Washington data center, I absolutely can do that. And my data will not leave those physical locations unless I set it up to do so. One of the big resistance points that we hear from companies all the time, oh, we're scared of clouds, security, etc. You don't lose control of your information. You are in charge of that. Same way you are in charge of your information when it sits in your physical business, okay, in your databases, okay, it's the same thing. Now, the first bullet point out there, I said Amazon is the largest cloud services provider out there. There's obviously lots of competitors. And again, we're talking about AWS, so I don't want to slight the other competitors. They're all worthy competitors. I teach Azure classes and things like that. But when you look at what a dominant presence AWS has, and this statistic, when I heard it, just kind of blew me away. If you take the total number of customers that Amazon Web Services has, and then you look at the next 3 largest providers, which Microsoft Azure is consistently number 2, Google Cloud is number 3, number 4 kind of trades off, sometimes it's IBM, sometimes it's Alibaba, etc. But if you take the number of customers Amazon has, then you take the next 3 and add them up, AWS has 4 times the number of customers that the next 3 have combined. That's just staggering. Okay? And Amazon uses that size, okay, that capacity, okay, to continue to push the envelope in bringing new technologies to us and new capabilities. I've got a couple of links down at the bottom of the website here. And by the way, open up your favorite search engine, open up Google, and just type in AWS new features. You'll find these websites really easily. The reason I'm pointing you at these is to illustrate to you that Amazon continues to push the envelope. When you look at those links, new features in 2018, new features in 2017, etc., you're looking at announcements, new features, new capabilities, and advancements, enhancements, whatever you want to call it. Okay, 1,000 to 1,500 of those per year. Okay? They literally have emails that go out and videos that go out sometimes on a weekly basis. Hey, new stuff this week. Okay? Amazon's not done building this. They are continuing to push the envelope here. And again, with all due respect, so are all cloud providers. providers, okay, but we're talking about AWS here, obviously, specifically. Okay. Now, spending all this time talking about how cool cloud is, how cool AWS is, all that kind of fun stuff out here. This is about you, this is about me, this is about how we can get involved. So if you're an IT person, think of your job role out there. And if you're not using cloud computing yet, or if you are, start talking to some of the people in your business, okay? Think about how you can start to do or how your job role changes if we start looking at cloud computing. And what I have listed here are the 3 really common cloud computing models. And these are just ways that companies utilize cloud computing. So for instance, when we say infrastructure as a service or IaaS, what we're talking about here, okay, is going to a cloud provider, AWS, and what we're going to be building and utilizing there are traditional infrastructure components, virtual machines, storage, networking, etc. We may use them in conjunction with our on-premises environment, but we're starting to build in the cloud those kinds of resources. Now, if your IT job, if your IT role is as an infrastructure person, you're a server admin, you're a network admin, you're a storage admin, there you go. We need those administrators, we need those people working in cloud computing as well. One of the myths out there that circulates is cloud computing is going to be eliminating all of these different job roles, and nothing could be further from the truth. Sure, some job roles are going to change a little bit, but it's actually going to magnify and enhance. If I'm a server admin for Windows servers locally in my business now, we need server admins when your company goes over to AWS because we're going to have Windows servers and Linux and Unix and all the other operating systems running there too. Yeah. Platform as a service is typically defined as those application development platforms, things like databases, could be the actual programming tool sets that we utilize, etc. So if you're a developer, the future for you is unbelievably bright because all of those applications that have been written for a traditional server environment, okay, physical databases running in our on-premises environment, etc., we've got the ability to do all of those types of things, okay, in a cloud environment, in AWS. Okay? So the programmers are going to be employed forever and ever and ever. Now, I'm using some terms here. I'm saying databases. And so for the DBAs in the audience, you're probably thinking, which databases can we run? If I go over to AWS, okay, can I run MySQL? Okay, could I run a NoSQL type database? Could I run Microsoft SQL Server? Could I run Oracle? Could I run DB2? The answer is yes, 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 yes. Okay, we can pretty much run anything we want to. We may be able to run it cheaper and easier in the cloud than you could locally, okay, but we absolutely can do that. Okay. Software as a service is typically defined as applications that we are going to consume maybe more on a user type basis. Probably the most successful software as a service offering out there on the planet today, and we got to give a nod to Microsoft on this one, is Office 365. I use Office 365. I teach Office 365. Okay, that's a software as a service offering. It's running in Microsoft's cloud, okay, but that's email, SharePoint, Teams, Skype for Business, all of those cool applications, but I don't have to manage the physical part. I can just manage the deployment, the data, and the users. So when we look at software as a service offerings, okay, that is where a company is going to stop using, okay, the local on-premises installed options, okay, for software and look at doing that in the cloud. Okay? So one of the things to start to think about, if you're on the outside looking in with this cloud computing, okay, is just simply look at your job role and then start looking at, well, okay, how does that translate into a cloud computing environment? And chances are it's going to translate pretty well and probably magnify as we go forward. What are some other things that you can do? Now, it's probably no secret that in a moment I'm going to talk to you about training classes and certifications because I'm a trainer. That's what we do. But there's a huge amount of information that AWS puts out there completely for free. I've highlighted a couple of the ones that I use myself constantly, and I mean constantly, like almost every day. Okay? Amazon has a big conference, user conference. It's in Las Vegas typically. It's the week after Thanksgiving. I happened to be there last year. It's the Amazon reInvent conference. Me and 45,000 of my best friends were there. Okay? It's an amazing conference. If you can go to reInvent, go to reInvent. But you know what? Go to Amazon's YouTube channel. Okay? Literally go there right now. YouTube, AWS. Do a search. You're going to see a playlist out there. Absolutely 100% for free. And it's not every session from reInvent out there, but there are dozens and dozens, and these are the actual sessions that attendees like me were, sitting at the Venetian and all the other conference halls are out there watching these sessions, and you can watch them from your home for free. It's exactly the same sessions from last year's conference. Okay, that's free training. Okay, you sign up for the conference, it's probably going to cost you $2,000 to register for the conference. You can go for free right there. Okay, Amazon also runs different events around the country called the Amazon Summit Series. Again, just Google Amazon Summit Series. Okay, they just had a couple of them last week. Okay, these are shorter events. They're free in different areas around the country, but if you can't get to New York or Chicago or Singapore, wherever they're holding the next one, go online. They put all the recordings out there for free. Okay, literally a couple dozen videos just dropped on the YouTube channel. Okay, last week from the summits that they had. Okay, amazing training. The Amazon Getting Started Center, AWS Getting Started Center, that's a collection of more resources than I can list off. Just, again, introductory videos and tutorials and white papers, etc. Okay, on and on and on and on. You could spend days on these two alone and never run out of cool stuff to do. Probably the best way to get involved is to start using AWS. Amazon has a product, service, whatever you want to call it, called AWS Free Tier. So what they do with this, and again, just follow the link or Google AWS Free Tier, you'll find the website out there. So when you do a free tier account, what you're doing, and by the way, I use this myself, okay, literally every day I'm using this. What you're doing is you're going out there and actually creating a real AWS account. It's absolutely real, legitimate account. It's literally the same kind of account that a Fortune 100 company would be making. However, when you sign up through free tier, and again, you create yourself an account, you got to put in your payment information, credit card, etc., you're going to see a whole list of resources that Amazon is going to give you, AWS is going to give you on a monthly basis completely for free. Now, it's not everything. They're not giving away the store here. But for instance, for virtual machines, if I want to go out and build a Windows server, Linux server, etc., there are classes, which are sizes of virtual machines, and you get so many compute hours per month. I believe, and I'm pulling this from my memory, you get 750 compute hours per month. Now, you're only charged compute hours when your machine's running. So for instance, I was playing around with a CentOS Linux machine last night as I was sitting on the couch. Okay, I've got it created in my AWS free tier account. I go out there, turn on my machine, log in, play around, do some stuff. Okay, maybe I burn through an hour's worth of time, something like that. Turn it off. I don't get billed for that anymore. For 12 months, you will get access to these resources. And it's virtual machines, it's databases, it's storage, it's serverless applications running in Lambda. I mean, the list is amazing of the stuff you get. One caution. This account you're creating with AWS is an absolutely real account. You have to give them your payment information, your credit card information. If you go beyond the free tier allotment, you will get charged. Now, there's some billing alerts that they send you. Okay, when you're approaching the end of your free tier access for a given month, they'll say, hey, by the way, you're getting close. Okay, but if I went out there in my free tier account and built 1,000 web servers, I would get a bill at the end of the month for 1,000 web servers. Okay, it's a real account, but you get a pretty healthy amount of resources for free. No better way to get involved than just start doing it. Just start playing with it. Now, probably not surprisingly, New Horizons is a training organization. I'm a trainer and I teach this stuff. So we believe one of the best ways to get involved is to get educated. So when we take a look at AWS training options here, we kind of break them up into a couple of large areas here. Okay, decision making, architecting, operations, which is like the system administrators, and then the developing track. So if and when you're looking for training options with AWS, you got to kind of look at the specific job role and say, okay, where do I slot in? Now, you might start by looking at, oops, sorry about that. You might start by looking at a foundational level class. For instance, we have a 1-day AWS fundamentals class. Now, are you going to learn every single thing about AWS in one day? No, it's an overview. It's a fundamentals class. You want to come in, you want to spend some time with an instructor like myself. You want to learn about AWS. You want to start getting your hands on it, touch it a little bit, kind of give you the basics, give you a little bit of leg up. That's a fantastic way to get started. Quick, easy 1-day class. Okay, we offer them all the time, okay, either physically or online, etc. Now, you can go on from there. Okay, if I take a foundational, 1-day class, and I say, oh, this is pretty cool, I want to get more involved, then what you would look at is, what's your job role? Are you an administrator? Are you more on the design and architecture side? Are you a programmer? And then kind of the next level that you're going to go into after that foundational level there at the bottom is what we call the associate level. And I have a couple of examples for you here. The associate level courses, and I just picked 2 of them that I actually teach, okay? AWS Architect Associate and SysOps Associate. Each of these are 4-day classes. So obviously 4 days, we got to go through a lot more detail than we do in a 1-day fundamentals class. But for instance, in the AWS SysOps Associate class, we're going to spend 4 days and we're going to go through some of those areas that a system administrator is going to be looking at and doing. So we'll spend, a good 3 or 4 hours going through a module talking about virtual machines, what we call EC2 instances in AWS. How do I build the machine? How do I configure the machine? How do I do the disks and the CPU and the memory? And how do I get my machines, okay, in auto-scaling groups? When demand goes up, it automatically creates more. You'll do those things, okay? When you come to the class, it's hear it, see it, do it. Instructor's going to explain it. Instructor's going to demo it. You're going to do it in the lab. You're going to get your hands on the technology. So depending upon your job role, after that 1-day foundational level class, then we'd look at the associate level class. And again, whether you're a developer associate, SysOps associate, architect associate, etc. That's going to make you pretty confident. I mean, those are real usable job skills. And by the way, they also translate over to certifications that Amazon has. If you want to certify on this, you certainly can. After that, notice there's a 3rd level of training out there, and Amazon calls it the professional level of training. Okay? Once you've been through the architect, and then you want to just go deeper into those particular areas. Okay? And then over on the right-hand side, and this is something that's continuing to change and develop, maybe you need to specialize a little bit. For instance, literally just last week, Amazon launched for general availability their security specialty class and certification. So I'm in information assurance, or I'm on the security team and things like that. You're going to need the foundational knowledge and maybe the associate level knowledge, but that's going to be a 4-day class where you can dive in and just talk specifically about those security options. And each one of these layers has certifications that go along. So you can do the training. If you care to get certified, okay, help your job prospects, things like that, bolster the resume, okay, you absolutely can do the certification. It's not required, obviously, that you do certification, but you absolutely can. Okay. Again, I'm a systems administrator, okay, so I'm going to teach the foundational level class. I'm going to teach the architecture class. I'm going to teach the, SysOps associate classes. Again, I personally, I would also do, things like, the advanced networking or the security. Those are areas that I would fall under. You're not going to find me teaching the developer classes or the big data classes because I'm not a developer. I'm not a DBA, but that doesn't mean you're not. Okay. Now, these things evolve and change over time. Okay. This is a pretty good kind of baseline offering, and it's going to meet the needs of the vast majority of people out there. But 6 months from now, a year from now, are we going to have more options as things develop? Sure, of course we are. Okay, absolutely. Okay, so you can go from going online, getting some fantastic content absolutely for free. Okay? Available via YouTube, available via the Getting Started Center. You can stand up your own AWS account right now and start utilizing it. And again, there's all kinds of tutorials and things out there. Okay? You can start to formalize the process, okay, with more formalized training, okay, certification. Obviously, New Horizons wants to be your provider for that. NewHorizons.com is our corporate site. From there, you can locate your local New Horizons branches. We have them all over the country, all over the world. If you're in the Omaha area, come and see me. I'm at the Omaha Center. Okay. And again, these are just a small sampling of some of the things that we are going to be able to bring to you. Okay. Now, I've been talking for about 30 minutes straight here. And that's what trainers do. Questions, comments on anything I have talked about, not talked about, etc. You can put some of the questions in the questions window, as Kelly mentioned. I'll be happy to entertain any questions, more details if you have them.
All right. Thanks so much, Sean. And as Sean mentioned, feel free to ask any questions right now, and we will stay on the line and answer those over audio for you guys. In addition to what Sean already said, I also want to remind everyone that we are promoting our Cloud and Virtualization Month for the month of May. So we have a number of upcoming webinars that are free for you to attend. So if you're looking for more information on this, please visit our website at newhorizons.com. You can click on the webinars link to find all of our upcoming free sessions, and you can register for those there as well. You can also view our past webinar recordings in our webinar archive library. We have over 50 webinar recordings for you to access at any time, so I highly recommend you guys take advantage of that. Just different tips and tricks and things like what you learned today. And Sean, it looks like we don't have any questions, so I think we can go ahead and wrap up today's presentation. So thank you again so much for presenting on behalf of New Horizons.
Entirely my pleasure.
All right. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you'll join us for future webinars and sign up for our upcoming classes as well. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.